Welcome to TrulyFit.
All right, back. Thanks for joining the TrulyFit Podcast. Today is one of our episodes where we go down some trending topics in health and fitness and nutrition, and we give our take on those topics. Some of them we'll expand on and talk for 5 to 15 minutes, and some of them will be quick, and we'll just give a quick snippet. But for anybody who has not heard you on the podcast previously, just give a quick background on who you are and what you do day to day in the health and fitness industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who don't know, I am Steve's sister. It's not a coincidence that we have the same last name. Clearly, we both have a passion for health and nutrition. So I'm a board certified state licensed dietitian. I have my own private practice here in Miami Beach, and I specialize in weight loss, metabolic issues, and then also autoimmune conditions.
All right, let's jump right in here. First one is toddlers on vacation. Yes, before we get into health and fitness, well, this is mental health.
Mental health for sure.
Should you take your toddler on vacation? Is it really a vacation? I've heard from someone else that said, there's no such thing as a vacation with a toddler. You're just watching your toddler in a different city. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. So we just got back from a 3-week trip up to Long Island. It was lovely, but it was equally stressful. We brought the toddler and the dogs, so we just, we packed it all in. I fully agree with you, and I think if you're planning one of these trips, you need to set realistic expectations. I think that's the best thing you can do. That this isn't going to be a romantic, beautiful getaway. Not with a toddler, right? Maybe by the time your kids are 10, it gets easier and they're more independent. But I tried to set my realistic expectations for myself and also for Nick, for my husband, to say we are going to just be parenting in another state. Even when we have help, we have someone watching her, you still have all of the stressors and things to think about that you had at home. So it's new scenery. I think that it, allows you to explore new things. I definitely felt less stressed, and I think that has its own implications, which I want to get into in a minute. But yeah, it's definitely not a vacation. And I do have friends that take multiple trips a year, right? Maybe 4 times a year they go away with 2 kids, 3 kids, and I don't know how they do it.
I don't
how
like
about
people.
You guys have traveled pretty frequently with Mackenzie.
Yeah, my daughter's not even 3 yet, and she's taken 9 airplane trips. That's 2 places and back, right? So 18 trips on an airplane, 9 different locations. Wow. And I would say the things that are not as difficult as people think is the actual travel. As long as you have a plan in place and you have all your bags ready to go, and you kind of mentally map out, okay, I'm going to have to put this bag on when I get out of the car in the airport and do this and do that. And you get on the airplane and you have the proper toys and food and all that stuff. The travel isn't that hard. What's hard is that, when you get to said location, there's always a pivot, right? Your kid's sick, your kid gets hurt, your kid just doesn't want to go to the thing you paid for whatever reason. So you have to be ready to say how I planned the vacation out, just like how I planned the travel out. Things are not going to go perfect. And I have to remember that, and I have to adjust, because usually, on vacation, you think it's purely relaxing. You're going to do what you want. You're the one who paid for it. You have an itinerary. That itinerary is just not going to work out how you think. And as long as you go into that, understanding that itinerary is not going to work out. And I don't like over parental tips. I hate them, but I will give one here. Have somebody on the vacation who can watch your kid for a little bit. Hopefully that's what you want. So if you go back to your home destination, or you trust a particular babysitter, having at least 3 hours to yourself, you and your wife, so you can leave the kid and or kids away, I think is important on vacation, because again, it feels less like a vacation if you don't actually get away.
For sure. I have 2 things there that I want to expand upon. One is the planning. We tend to plan everything. My daughter really does very well with a schedule and structure. And so I'm always thinking all right, morning, what's the activity? Then nap, then afternoon, what's the activity? But what I found on vacation is that, sometimes you can overplan, and sometimes that's to your detriment, right? Because we were in Long Island, and, the Northeast has different animals and insects and foliage and things than Miami has. And she was so excited just to go outside and look at the spiders, to pick the flowers, to just run in the grass, right? To just have this different experience. Things, we grew up there, but things as an adult that you're this isn't exciting, she was thrilled to just run around in the front yard and, see new things and touch new things. And so I think, sometimes getting outdoors, I think is huge. It's so important for toddlers, and for parents' mental health, right? But just sort of letting them lead instead of like having an activity and having something planned. Like she just wanted to walk around and pick up rocks and, pick flowers for the day. And that was actually really lovely. The other thing I'll say, a quick tip that we tried this time around. So long story short, we rented a house in Long Island and we just had difficulty getting back to Miami. There was a storm here. There was flight cancellation. So the last night we ended up getting a hotel room in New York City so we could easily get to the airport to get home the next day. And what we ended up doing was getting 2 adjoining rooms. So listen, I will stay in a less expensive hotel and do this rather than stay in a fancy hotel any day of the week. So we got 2 adjoining rooms so that we could put her pack and play in that other room, leave the door open, but then at least it can be dark in there, because we've had this issue before of if the pack and play is in our room and she sees us in the middle of the night, she will not go back to sleep. Even now, even at 2.5, right? She'll be 3. In the fall. And that was such a game changer to us to like have the rooms, you have the door open, but then she at least has her own space. And you get a minute, right? Like Nick went down to the hotel bar and brought us up a glass of wine. And that was like one way to wind down, at the end of our vacation. But I think, gosh, that was such a game changer for us.
Yeah, we did that when we went to San Antonio. We just did sort of like a weekend drive trip. San Antonio is only like 3 hours from us. And we drove down there, and I forget the name of the hotel, but actually they're pretty nice. And all of the rooms are basically built like that, right? There's an adjoining room, and then there's a door that like kind of closes between them, or a curtain that closes between them. And you can make sure that you're watching TV in the other room and not waking your kid up, or you're sitting down having a glass of wine, discussing next day's plans and not waking your kid up. You could even, leave the room if it's on the first floor and the bar's right next door, the little restaurant, if you wanted to, if your kid's old enough and you have a baby monitor or something, right? So, that's certainly a big help rather than just being stuck in the room. It happened to us the first time we traveled. We traveled for Easter. I believe Mackenzie was 1 year old. We traveled. And we didn't do that. And we got a hotel room and she had to go to bed at 6:30 because she was tired. And we're like, oh, I guess we're stuck in this hotel room.
What do you do?
For 3 hours until we actually get tired.
And you just can't, your lights are off. You can't talk.
Lights are off. We can't talk. The TV's on like 3 volume and we're watching crappy movies for 3 hours until we get tired.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah.
Wait, I have one more thing I want to say about toddlers. So
sure.
This is a takeaway that I had after this most recent travel experience. I tend to be, I don't know if you could tell, I tend to have like anxiety. I tend to be a little bit more high strung, right? I'm definitely a type A person. So I think I'm the best version of myself on vacation, right? On any vacation, you just like, everyone tends to be more relaxed. And I noticed that, that's the energy I was bringing into every day there, right? My experiences and my interactions with not only with my daughter, with my husband. So sometimes I think, we put a lot of emphasis on the things that we're saying to our kids and then like our actions, but sometimes it's our vibes, right? I think that they can feel it. Even if I'm like, everything's okay, but I'm panicking, Aurelia knows everything's not okay, right? So like they can feel it. And so, I noticed that she was more relaxed there. And so just, how can you take that energy and bring it home? Because I'm someone who finds it hard to relax in my own home, right? We live in Miami. We have a lovely pool. We're 5 minutes from the beach, but it's hard to just sit and relax and unwind. And I think toddlers can really read that energy, and that probably has a role in a lot of their behavior. So, focusing on me where I'm at first as a parent has been big. And then it, I think has rippling effects out from there.
Yeah. If you can control your schedule, I'll say the last thing on this. You want to exercise right before you get your toddler at the end of the day or before you have to handle your toddler, right? So if I can block my schedule off, and I try to do this almost every other day, is if I pick my toddler up at 4 o'clock, I work out from 3 to 3:45 or 2:45 to 4. And
Smart.
that relaxes you, and that gets your energy in a better place, so that, when inevitably you pick them up and something's going wrong, or they thought they were getting a snack in the car and there is no snack, you're just calmer, and the rest of the night goes well.
Yeah, it's true.
Next topic here.
Cool. Okay, moving on. The next topic is home gym musts. So I definitely have some things that I want to contribute, but I know you are the expert in all things fitness. So if someone is building a home gym, what are the essentials you think they need to have?
Well, although I am the expert, you actually have a home gym and I do not, given that I'm currently renting. So, but let's just start with what you have in your home gym. I know you have a spin bike, right? You have a Peloton. You have
it's over there.
You have dumbbells between, whatever, 3s and 20s, pretty much all the dumbbells someone would need. You, I think, had some sort of mirror. I don't know if you still have that, like the mirror, meaning like the Lululemon kind of like push pull cable machine, which is great. You could hook up different bars and different handles to that and do all these exercises, and a mat. And that's pretty much all you need. I mean, that is in a really good all-encompassing home gym. Now, I think there's different kinds of home gyms. There's garage gyms, which are different than what I consider a home gym. If you're in the garage, you can do a little bit more. You can hang things from like the rafters, kind of, right? In the ceiling. So then you could have like a TRX band, which I think is all-encompassing. I talk about that a lot. You can do everything with the TRX strap. A lot of people who just like to lift in more of an Olympic CrossFit style will have some sort of squat rack so that they can bench and shoulder press and deadlift and squat all inside of there, which is great, right? You can do almost everything inside of a squat rack with the proper barbell and all of the accompanying weights. And then you can put the flooring down as well. But I want to get away from garage gyms. I want to talk about if you're in your home, right? You have a room, there's carpet underneath or something, right? You don't necessarily have a special floor. What should you put in there? Always dumbbells, because you can do everything with dumbbells. You probably want a band or two and something to put that band around. When I say band, I mean a band with handles, not just a circular band you're putting around your ankles, right? Like a booty band. I mean something with handles so that you can do pulling exercises and pushing exercises, but you have to be able to wrap that band around something. So there's these things called like question mark hooks, and it's exactly what you think it is. It looks like a question mark, and you can screw it into the wall. They're pretty sturdy as long as you get it into a beam, and then you can put the bands inside of those. You always want a mat because sometimes the floor is not great to lay on. So when you're doing ab exercises, you want to use the mat. I think having one piece of unique equipment, like a kettlebell, is great, just so you can do different forms of exercise and switch things up here and there. Kettlebell is bottom weighted, so it changes. A 20-pound kettlebell is not like holding a 20-pound dumbbell because of where the weight is distributed and how you use it. So those would be the first things that come to mind for a home gym. Now, if you're allowed, if price doesn't matter and your space is decently sized, right, somewhere between, let's say, 200 square feet or more, I would say a really good option is just getting one cable machine. That's all you need. If you have one cable machine in the corner of a room, you can do everything on a cable machine. So you don't need anything else.
Yeah. Okay. I have a few contributions to make and maybe a rebuttal. I will say, most people don't have one whole extra room in their house to dedicate to a home gym, right? It's multi-purpose. So maybe it's the guest room, maybe it's also your office, maybe it's, who knows, storage. So I think that cable machine is kind of ugly, right? Am I thinking about this? Like it's not cute.
No, it's not. It maybe is a little bit better in a garage type scenario. Yeah. And you're right. If you have a room dedicated, it's perfect. Yes. If you do not have a room dedicated, you have to think about those things. Kind of an eyesore, so like you said, so the dumbbells are easy to move. You can put them even into like little baskets inside of like a little shelf if you don't have a closet. There are now small treadmills that basically fall down and you can slip underneath your couch. So those are great if you don't want to have a bike in the middle of your room. Because the one part about a bike is I think bikes look great in a room. I really like the look of like lounges with like a bike in the corner, just like yours is. But that doesn't mean everyone does. Some people might be like, why the hell is that bike in the corner?
They're not easy to move. I mean,
they're not easy to move.
300 pounds. I don't know.
Yeah. So that now there are ergs, rowers, that completely go up so you can put them up onto the
Oh,
wall,
like a
kind of,
Murphy
right?
bed. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
So you
cool.
can get, if you're worried about having the equipment stand out, I would certainly
Aesthetics,
maybe
yeah.
avoid the bike and then get the walking smaller treadmills that fold down that you can hide, or get the erg that you can kind of put up against the wall and put into the corner. I think that is a good point, because not everybody has a dedicated space, like you said.
For sure. So yeah, a couple things I want to expand upon. One is you talked basically about cardio, right? So do you do the treadmill? Do you do the rower? I think I have both. We have a treadmill and a bike. I love my Peloton. I love the bike, but sometimes I think the treadmill is more versatile, right? In that, and listen, if you have Peloton, or I think SoulCycle also has a bike, they also give you an app. So you don't always have to just use the bike, right? They give you at-home workouts that you can just use the screen for, or do on your iPad or whatever. But if you're looking for the equipment, I think that a treadmill is more versatile, right? Because I'm not an avid runner, but I will jog, and then I can walk uphill. You can walk backwards. You can do different things. And even on days where I'm like, I do not want to exercise, right? I'm just like, oh, exhausted or whatever, I can walk. And so I like that, right? I can walk for 30 minutes while I'm listening to a podcast or doing whatever. So that's like the bare minimum. And I really like the treadmill for that, right? If there's nothing else I can do, I think you can still push yourself to walk, you know?
There's also,
Because I think,
to add to your point, there's also a larger range of people who can use it. So if you have, let's say, maybe a small knee injury and it's not even diagnosed, maybe it's just like cartilage issues, right? You have wear and tear over
right.
time. The bike could be difficult for some people, hip issues, things of that nature, whereas almost anybody can walk. Okay. So
Right. Yeah.
now at the same point, if you're an elite athlete, you can still really challenge yourself on the treadmill, right? So there's a wider range of
Yeah.
people that can use the treadmill. That's another reason why that's sometimes superior to the bike, if we're looking from that angle.
Yeah, I like that. And then I will say I use the bands that you advised against, like just the bands that don't have the handles. And I like them because I know they're not quite as versatile as the one with the handles, but they fold up so nicely. And, I just have a tiny little basket. I have different strengths, right? Light, medium, heavy. And they're very easy to just put away. I also have, and I don't know what this is called. Do you know when you go to a gym and they have the giant balls that you sit on to do abs?
Yeah.
Well, they have little balls that I would say, like, I don't know, it's maybe 8 or 9 inches in diameter.
Yeah, it's called a bender ball. So they
Okay.
use a lot in Pilates. But yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
bender
So
balls are great.
same
You can
thing.
put them behind your back to do ab exercises. You can use them. We call adductions, when you pull your knees together. So you put them in between your knees and you squeeze. That works your adductor muscles inside of your thighs. It even makes abs harder because you're sort of recruiting more of what we call like the global stabilizer muscles. So when people think of their core, they only think of like their ab muscles, but no, there's lower back, there's into your hip flexors, there's all these smaller
Yeah.
muscles. So if you can squeeze that ball, let's say even between your feet, and then do exercises with traditional ab exercises, you're going to recruit a lot more muscle. So yeah, bender balls are great. And they
They're
even,
small. Yeah,
they're
they're
really small,
small.
but if
Go ahead,
you want
sorry.
to make them even smaller, let's say you want to bring it on vacation, you could deflate the bender ball and it folds up to something smaller than your phone, and then you just inflate it when you get to your location.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I really love that. And then one more tip that we've done, when we were designing our nursery, we wanted like a big play mat for Aurelia. So there's this company, obviously we're not associated, I'm just being honest. It's called Little Nomad, and they do these play mats, and they're easy to clean, and they're, this foam so your kids don't get hurt. We actually put it in our home gym because it's basically like an inch thick, super easy to clean, and you can move the tiles around, right? It fits together like a puzzle piece. So you can move them around if you want to like set up a corner here or set up a corner there, and they look nice. It almost looks like a nice decorative rug instead of like something more rugged or industrial looking. And so you can, put your ab mat on top of that. That way you just have a bigger space. If you're going to do, a HIIT class or some type of class, right, that you're watching on YouTube or on an app, you have a bigger space to move around. You're not just confined to one little mat.
I will also add, it just sparked my mind when you said that. If you are looking for something in the garage, more rugged, as you said, that you're not looking for, don't get the standard like fitness floor tiles because they just jack the prices up for those. What you can do is you can get like, they're like horse mats, basically. They're mats used for like animals and like horse barns, and they're a third of the price, but they're the same thing. They're just like some sort of hard rubber plastic that you can put down for like an inch and drop things on it. And you can get creative. You can go to Home Depot and Lowe's and all these places and get flooring instead of trying to order like fitness mats specifically, which are just the same thing as some of these other mats, but they just jack the price up because you're typing in home gym and fitness. And I want to clarify, there's nothing wrong with those bands that you talked about. Especially for leg related exercises. They're smaller. There's a lot of great things to do with the circular bands, but the fact that the band connects, right? It's a full circle, doesn't allow you to do some of the exercises that you would otherwise do. Right. So let's take a high row. So like a high row or a high pull, when I'm pulling that band up towards my face and I'm working all my upper back muscles, my rhomboids, some of my muscles in my shoulders and my upper back muscles. You can't do that with a band that's circular necessarily, right? So you need to wrap it around something and then pull it towards your face. So it just, it's good to have both, really. It's like, why they're so cheap. Why not have every version of a band you possibly can?
Yeah, I love that. I'll say one last thing. This is probably more directed at your female listeners. I have a lot of friends who have these home gyms, right? Who got the bike, who got the thing, who got the, whatever type of equipment, and they never use it. So I think you have to like your space. You have to enjoy going in there. If you get all this equipment and you feel like the garage is dark and dungy and dirty and you don't want to use it, what's the point? So you have to make sure, I would rather you have like way less, just get dumbbells then, right? Like have way less and walk into the space and feel good in it, rather than piling a bunch of things in, having things be disorganized and chaotic, and then never actually, using the room.
And be introspective when it comes to building it. Maybe it's just not for you. Right. So, like we made a really nice backyard in my house in Oklahoma City. I put expensive turf down and we did all the stuff to the backyard. I think we used the backyard twice in like 3 years because we're just not people who want to we're not people who want to go sit down outside. We do stuff.
You want to go
so
do
every
something,
time, so like we go on walks like every single day. We love walking, but we don't love sitting outside just for no reason. So it's like, be introspective. Are you going to use this? Are you someone who's going to use this? Like, that's why I don't have a home gym, because my wife and I like going to the physical gym. We like the environment there. So it's like, why build a home gym? I know I'm not going to use it. So it's not for everyone. What I eat in a day videos, are they corny? Are they useless? Are they useful? I know this is sort of in your realm. I see them too much. I can only imagine in your feed doing what you do for a living, how much that you see them. What is it about these videos that stands out? Should we not do them?
Yeah, I'm annoyed by them. Listen, I think they can be useful in maybe inspiring people, right? To say like, oh, maybe I'll put pumpkin seeds on my salad tomorrow. That's a neat approach. Maybe I can have lemon water in the morning. However, you and I have beat the dead horse on this one. Nutrition and physical fitness need to be personalized, right? What's right for me is not going to be what's right for you. What I eat is based on my lifestyle, my preferences, and my goals and my medical history. People see this and take it sort of as, like the Bible. I'm like, well, I have to have this because this is what she eats and this is why she looks that way. If you see someone on the internet, there's a zillion reasons why they look the way they look, right? It's not just because one day she had eggs for breakfast. So I think you need to take it with a grain of salt. Yes, if you're looking for inspiration, maybe there's some good ideas there, but in general, I think they're pretty useless.
I think they're disingenuous also. I don't ever see people showing videos of what they eat like on a bad day. Sure. Or, we all have, I mean, I hesitate to even use that term bad day, but it's always the perfect ratio of meals, right? It's like, oh, I woke up in the morning and I had like 3 eggs and a half a grapefruit. And then I had a snack that was, perfectly healthy vegetable snack. And then, for lunch I had,
it's not real life.
Fish.
It's not real life.
Like, do you really have this every single day? Like what about the bad days? And also it's just, I'm sick of seeing into people's like fake internet lives. Like this is like such a fake internet life thing, and that's what sort of I don't know, grinds my gears. I don't like these videos. I've never done one. People have asked me before, actually, like, hey, like what exactly do you eat in a day? They haven't asked me to make a video. They just asked me what I eat in a day. I'm like, I don't know. It's always different. And also it's like what I eat in a day, because I've been eating a particular way and working out for, however many years, like my body's going to respond to things differently than yours. Like this is not helpful. Like, who is this helping? No. It's not helping anybody. So it's to me, it's disingenuous and showy. It's not actually trying to help people.
For sure. I get the same question. Clients are always like, well, what do you eat? And similar to you, right? I've been the same weight and same body fat percentage for 13 years, right? Outside of pregnancy. So I can afford to eat differently sometimes, right? Like if I have pizza, it doesn't mean you should have pizza. And then on the flip side of that, I also do things that may be too extreme for people, right? So during the week, I typically don't eat breakfast. I typically don't eat till 12:30 or 1. And intermittent fasting isn't right for everyone. And I don't even just mean it may not be effective for everyone. I mean that it could actually be dangerous for people. So, right, depending on your medical history, for instance, if you have a history of gallstones, intermittent fasting is dangerous. You shouldn't do it. And so, all that to say, it really has to be personalized. Work with a professional and figure out what's right for you. Don't just follow some influencer on the internet.
It is really easy content. I think that's why people do it. It's so easy, right? People like to watch it. That's undeniable. These videos get a ton of views and it's so easy. It's like I have to take my phone out for 30 seconds while I'm actually eating whatever it is I'm eating. And maybe it's a little, again, put on. It's a little showy. I wouldn't eat that normally, or I wouldn't plate it that same exact way. But it's just easy content. I think people are reaching for easy content, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the way of the world.
It's true. All right, next topic. Update us on your fitness journey. Are you able to dunk yet? How's that coming along?
There's a big update here. I've changed. I've now changed my goal. I've changed my goal.
So no.
It had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with the fact that like I don't think I could have not done it, or I wasn't like on pace to do it. Mind you, I have a year basically at this point, almost a year to get this done. It was that I don't really have anyone to play basketball with at this time, like where I live and what I do. So I can't really get to the court like at the times of my life. And that's a big part of like getting to this goal is like being able to go to the basketball court, right?
Yeah,
like
I need not in your backyard. Yeah, that's
so
hard
like
to do.
There's outdoor basketball courts, which are just not as great, especially in Texas where it's 120 degrees in the summer, right?
And not even just the summer, right? I imagine it's like Miami, right? It's basically May through September. It's just forever.
Last year, 6 months of the year, it hit over 100 at some point.
Oh my gosh.
In 6 different months, right? So you're just talking extreme heat. The indoor basketball court that I had access to was just not that great. And I had to go there at weird times. And I have a kid with another kid on the way. So it's really difficult because the goal was not simply just like me doing something outside. Like I had to have access to the basketball court. So it just didn't make sense for me. And then also at this point in my life, I really just don't enjoy playing basketball like I used to. It's just not as enjoyable for me. So what I enjoy doing is sprinting. So I changed the goal to trying to run a 4.6 40. So for people who aren't really aware of like the times of a 40, Jerry Rice, who was the greatest wide receiver of all time, when he was at the combine, he ran a 4.6 40. It's very fast. Okay.
So now you're trying to be as fast as the greatest wide receiver of all time.
Yeah, but so people who know
a little out of practice.
No, so people who know sports and know football know that I'm putting this on a little bit because it was a different era of football, and he wasn't a speed wide receiver. Right? That's not why he was so great. He was quick, he was agile, he ran great routes, he had great hands, he was smart, he had every single thing you could need, but he wasn't like the fastest guy. The fastest guys run a 4.2 now, and like that's impossible, right? I could train from now until the day I die. I could have a professional person. You could pump me through every drug that's ever existed. I would never be able to run a 4.2. There's just my physical body does not have those beings. But a 4.6 is really not that fast. My friends in high school ran 4.6s. I didn't. Okay. I ran probably like high 4.7s in high school.
So you've never run it. So this is going to be a brand new PR
for
you.
Yeah, it would be a PR for me for sure. So that's what I enjoy doing. So I'm still doing a lot of the same exercises as far as like explosive exercises that you would do in basketball, sort of jump training and working on my ankle mobility and flexibility, and kind of working through kind of like knees over toes type exercises to wake up some muscles that have been dormant. And I'm sprinting a lot. I'm just barefoot sprinting because that's what I enjoy. And I'll do a full workout and then like a leg workout, and then I'll go to the local like soccer fields and I'll just like barefoot sprint. So I haven't actually timed myself yet. And I know you're always like, Steve, like, how are you doing any of these things and not actually having like a bottom line metric? Data. And part of the reason is because I'm enjoying it, and I just don't want to look. I just don't want to look at the numbers yet. But very soon I will run my first 40 that's actually timed, so I know how far I have to get before I get there.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for you. Keep me updated.
Favorite freezer meals or food? I think we should stick to meals here if that's okay, because food is like, what do we mean by food? I'm gonna say like I put blueberries in the freezer. Like, let's just stick to like something that's over 200 calories or close to 200 calories, not just like chicken in the freezer.
Are you looking for like meals you prepare and can freeze to eat later, or just anything you can buy at the grocery store that's in the freezer that you can cook?
Grocery store. Let's go something that you would buy at the grocery store that's in the freezer that people would be surprised that's of value, that's frozen, because I know frozen things have, sort of sometimes a negative connotation. Do you have anything that you buy, some sort of small frozen meal? It could be even for your daughter if that.
Well, let me start by saying this. I think you're right. There is this idea that frozen food isn't as healthy, and that's not true. So frozen food is usually picked when it's ripe, and it is flash frozen. So, very, very quickly. And that's actually going to lock in the nutrients compared to strawberries that are picked in California and then have to be driven across the country to the East Coast and then sit in the grocery store on the shelf. They can lose all of those nutrients. So a lot of the times the frozen vegetables and fruit actually are more nutrient dense. The other thing is they're cheaper. So particularly with berries are so expensive. I don't know if they're expensive in Texas. A little thing of blackberries is like $7 here, So I've been buying all of my berries frozen, and that's good for smoothies. If you want to put them in the microwave and like put them over, Greek yogurt or something for a snack, delicious. My daughter likes to eat them frozen. It's like a treat. So I just cut them up. So organic frozen berries, cheaper, game changer.
My favorite freezer little meals are Saffron Road. They're all these
it's a good
pretty
brand.
Healthy Indian meals, right? Or sort of, Indian sort of adjacent. And they have everything from like biryani to chicken tikka masala to all of these things. They're all in the range of like 180 to 280 calories. So they're not super dense, but they're delicious. And if anyone's ever tried to make like a legit Indian meal, you'd be spending like, there's like memes of this online. You spend 4 times the amount of money it is to like make it, because the ingredients are weird. It's like, I don't have like fish sauce.
No. Yeah,
and like,
you gotta go to 3 different stores. Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah. So I don't have like butter simmer sauce and all these things. So because of that, it's so much easier just to buy them. They're absolutely delicious. 4 minutes in, they cook easy. It's pretty clean ingredients, right? It's typically just some form of rice and some form of meat with a light sauce of some sort. The sodium, of course, in any of these freezer meals is a little bit high, but if you're not someone who's necessarily worried about it, the Saffron Road is great. And I will say something else that you alluded to. Dr. Rhonda Patrick had said something to the extent of broccoli sprouts, which I used to eat a lot of, and I just don't anymore because it's hard to find them fresh at the store. I used to put them in my smoothies. They did tests on them, like the frozen ones compared to the other ones, and the frozen ones actually had more of whatever like key nutrient were in it. And maybe part of the reason why is because of what you said, is that if they're on the shelf for too long, they start to lose those, whereas the frozen ones don't, because they're flash frozen so quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, my other go-to, I don't know if you have this in Texas. Do you have Trader Joe's?
No.
Is that like an East Coast thing? Trader Joe's is heaven. It's amazing. It's such an amazing place. It's inexpensive. They have
there was a prank. Sorry, I have to interrupt real quick. Tell me in a second. But there was a prank recently, a high school prank. They printed out a giant sign and they put it like in the center of their town, like a giant
Trader
billboard
Joe's
that said
coming soon.
Trader Joe's coming soon with a QR code, and the QR code like went to like, some like stupid song, like a Rick Ross song or something.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Listen, everyone loves Trader Joe's. If you have one nearby, definitely check it out. But they sell these cauliflower gnocchi. And I think there's a lot of like propaganda with nutrition marketing. Sometimes it'll say cauliflower, but cauliflower is the last ingredient. These are very clean. Cauliflower is the number one ingredient. They're ready in minutes. You can either boil them, you can saute them. I toss them in the air fryer, and then, make them with a pesto, make them with your favorite sauce, throw in a protein or some other veggies. They are excellent. You wouldn't know that they weren't real gnocchi.
On to the next topic.
Ancient is not always optimal. So I'll kick this off. There's this idea that getting back to doing things the way our ancestors did is going to create optimal health. And while some of their practices were ideal, we have to remember that, one, they were only living to 30 or 40 years old. And that, two, some of the things they were doing were out of necessity and not necessarily related to health, right? Like, they didn't have umbrellas, so they weren't going out in the rain. Does that mean that umbrellas are bad for us? So I think we need to take it with a grain of salt, right? Because there's this whole idea of this ancestral diet or this Paleolithic diet. And I think I don't want to knock them completely. Again, I think nutrition has to be personalized. They're good for certain people with certain conditions during certain times, depending on their goals. But, universally, I don't think we can just assume that everything that our ancestors did was healthier than what we're doing today.
Well said. It comes from this odd place, and why I find it really sort of it just blows my mind. It's always these hippies who don't believe in any sort of like religious aspect, right? But for some odd reason, they think the human body is perfect. And what needs to be explained to them, because most of them have no background in science, is from like an evolutionary standpoint, we are so flawed. Our minds, right? We are the most impressive creature by far, right, on the planet with our minds. Our bodies are so weak. Okay, we have terrible vision compared to other animals. We have terrible hearing, terrible sense of smell. Our spines aren't built properly, for bipedalism. Our feet evolved way too quickly, right? So they don't work the way they should. We are not an impressive specimen by any means, right? You can take 30 of us and then put us in a room with like a bear, and we're all dead in 20 seconds, right? So we are not impressive. So when we talk about like we have to be optimal and do these things, it's like, no, we have to add to help our bodies survive. We have to add technology because we are so weak. And if you come from that premise to say like our bodies are actually not built very well and we need to help them out so that we can survive, right? A lot of animals go off on their own 2 years into their lives. My kid has to live with me until they're 18 or else they're going to die, right?
Sometimes
So like
longer, yeah.
Sometimes longer. Sometimes kids are 30 years old still living in their mom's basement. We are not an impressive physical specimen, and that needs to get through people's heads. So like when people say like, oh, we have to like walk around barefoot all the time. It's like, no, that is bad advice. And the hippies have to stop giving this advice that our bodies are perfect.
Yeah, I think, people go to extremes. So yes, I agree that our modern diets and our modern lifestyles of sitting in front of a screen for 8 hours a day, I think that's killing us, right? I think we do need to eat whole, real foods. We do need to be moving throughout the day. But on the other hand, for instance, like the paleo diet forbids eating beans and legumes. And then if you look at blue zones, right? These areas of the world where people are living well past their hundreds and have been for, centuries. Beans are a staple in all of these diets, right? So beans provide a lot of healthy protein and a lot of healthy fiber. If you have a certain type of gastro conditions, beans may not be a good option. If you have an autoimmune condition, sometimes the lectins in beans can impact that. However, for the majority of the population, beans are great. Beans are one of the healthiest foods in the world. So, this going back to what we said before, it has to be personalized, right? The paleo diet can be very effective. They even have a version of it called AIP, the autoimmune protocol. And it's a version of paleo that has been shown to be really, really effective in people in lowering inflammation for people with autoimmune conditions. But it's not for everybody, So I think people just have to take a step back, and we don't need to give up all of our modern conveniences. We just have to be mindful about how we're eating and how we're moving.
That's a good way to put it. We still need the modern conveniences married to maybe a little bit more of a primal lifestyle. And what that means is, yes, of course, we should be walking more, not sitting down all day. Yes, of course, we should be eating more foods that are from the earth. But to what extent? To what level? And I think that's part of the problem, right? I can't sleep out in the woods barefoot every night. It just doesn't work, right? It's not something that I'm going to practically be able to do having a kid.
And even if it were practical, is that healthier than sleeping inside? I don't think so, right?
Yeah. I mean, the argument could be, well, like the ventilation systems are not as good in homes as they would be just like breathing the natural air outside. Okay, I get it. But like also I can die because some scorpion can bite me. Okay. Yeah. Whereas I'm not going to die in my house because I rid them of scorpions. So I think to me, it's when, like we talked about, people just get into the extremes with this ancient stuff, right? We have to like go back to living in caves. It's like, no, we have to marry the modern conveniences, but make sure that we don't go too far where we're sitting in front of our computers for 18 hours a day, eating like completely processed foods. Right. We just, go back to some sort of healthy medium.
Yeah, agreed. Well said. Okay, last topic today. Yeah, Joe Biden's shoes. So I actually don't know much about this. I know they are called Hokas, and they're supposed to promote balance. I don't know if you saw the debate last night. I refrained from watching it, but I did see some clips on social media. Looks like we're all in trouble. Looks like neither candidate is really cut out to do this. But I mean, they sound great. I think that these shoes sound great. Do you think they work?
Well, not that we want to get political here, but man, that debate was a disaster last night. I watched the whole thing. My wife could not watch it. She had to walk out of the other room, and
Yeah, I skipped it.
How we have 300?
How did we get here?
315 million people in this country, and these are the two we're left with. Yeah, Joe. So the Hokas, my clients, I trained a lot of senior clients, and they all wore Hokas because they were recommended by their physicians, and it's like walking on a cloud. They're foam and thicker foam than most of the other shoes. So for people who have, let's say, arthritic issues, it helps them. It's a little bit lighter, right? You don't feel the pounding. Some runners wear them. I don't think they're great to run in. I think there comes a point in running where you want to feel some of those smaller muscles in your feet. And if you feel like you're running completely on a marshmallow and your feet are almost too relaxed, then those muscles aren't firing and they go dormant.
Right. And isn't that the opposite of running barefoot? And
it is the opposite of running barefoot. And the people who run barefoot hate Hokas. So these are two totally different ends of the spectrum, right? Yeah. So you have the people who are a little bit more towards the minimalist sort of primal.
Were saying, I bring this up because you said you run barefoot. That's part of your training.
So I sprint barefoot on grass. I do.
Is that different?
Yeah, I wouldn't jog barefoot.
Okay, I get it.
So jogging is a little bit different just because of how your foot touches the ground compared to sprinting, and then also the duration. So when I'm sprinting, I'm sprinting for 6-7 seconds. I'm doing that 10, 20 times. Like if you're going on a 45-minute jog, I think that's a little bit different. Now I have minimalist sneakers, but I use them in my training. I don't use them to run. For some people, they do. And if you're going to do that, like anything else, don't go to 0 to 60. Start out light with them. Don't jump straight into plyometrics. Do regular workouts in them. Go walk in them. Let your calf muscles and your feet get used to them, or else you're going to have turf toe. You're going to have Achilles problems. You're going to have calf problems, gastroc problems, soleus problems. So, don't go 0 to 60. But yeah, the Hokas, I'm not big on them because I think there's too much padding. And although they promote balance, at some point, they don't allow you to kind of part of balance is proprioception. And proprioception is just, your body being able to send signals to the muscles that are firing, those muscles sending signals back to your brain, right? The afferent and efferent neurons that are firing, so that you have that balance, so that you know what muscles are working and that they fire better, they're more efficient. And if you can't feel those muscles because they're too padded, there's too much between you and the ground, well, then those muscles don't fire. So you actually lose proprioception. So
Right.
I don't mind the Hokas of a certain age. If you have, let's say, severe joint problems, knee and hip issues, and you want to limit that while you're going on walks, but I wouldn't necessarily tell people it's going to help your balance.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Good to know.
Last one, we'll do this one quick. Is there something that you wish was invented in the health and fitness industry? Anything that you're like, why isn't this invented yet? This is what I would have invented if I could have by now.
Yeah, so I saw this thing online recently, and it was this woman who has a service dog, and the service dog can smell gluten. So I have celiac disease. I've had it, I was diagnosed as a baby. It's different than just a gluten intolerance, right? It's an autoimmune condition when your body is exposed to gluten. And so going back to this woman, so she has very severe celiacs, by the way, like where she, almost dies every time she encounters gluten. And so she basically brings the dog with her, and he smells the dish. And because there's potential for cross-contamination in a lot of restaurants and stuff, the dog is able to smell it. Even stuff that she bought at the grocery store that says gluten-free. Listen, labels aren't always 100% accurate. So he can smell it and he can tell whether there's gluten in it. So I would love there to be like a device to do that. So I take an enzyme before I go out to eat because of the cross-contamination issue. The enzyme can break down the amino acids, so it shouldn't harm my body in the, like it normally would. But it would be so great to be able to do that, because basically for legal reasons, now all restaurants say, this is gluten-free, but chance of cross-contamination, blah, blah, blah. So you're never fully safe, So I would love a device, right, that you could just like beep, boop, put in front of your meal, and it could tell you whether there's gluten in it.
Yeah, that's such a great idea. In my mind, I was thinking of something that's almost like, if you've ever used a meat thermometer before, where, when you're grilling, sometimes, you want your burger to be like, let's say 160 degrees. So, it's not, it's going to harm you. So you stick the meat thermometer in and then it reads the temperature. I almost feel like that would be somewhat easy to do, where there's some mechanism. A lot of
things on the plate. Like maybe I pictured it like a scanner, where you're scanning the beach for jewels. Have you seen those people?
Yeah. But I guess then I feel like it would need to touch it. But maybe not.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Listen, I don't think the technology's there, but dogs can do it. I wish we could bottle that up. How about you? Is there something out there that you wish was invented?
We can get to the moon. We can replace the human heart. I'm sure someone could invent that, right? It's maybe people don't think it's as useful as it needs to be, but as people start to become healthier, and if they can make it multi-purpose, right? So it's not just for gluten.
Maybe dairy, right? Maybe
they can tell you they can tell you what's in it. Everything.
Sesame, all of these other issues, right? Yeah, all these other allergens.
They can just tell you everything, like 100% sure, like what allergy is in it. I think that would be an amazing thing. And then they could even sell it from an insurance perspective, like medically, right? Because like my daughter has a peanut allergy, I can get that approved by insurance to make sure that I can use that so that she doesn't have some sort of, asthma breakdown and attack. Mine would be, and they're starting to do this now. They've done it before with like flu related vaccines, but like find a way to administer medicine into my body without having to stab me with a giant knife.
You've always hated needles. It's so funny because you're this big buff guy and you just can't handle needles.
It's so antiquated. It's so barbaric. It's such an old technology that we've been using for so long. It's like you haven't figured another way out. Now I know the science, right? So people are like, well, it has to get into your bloodstream. Yeah, I know the science. Okay. What I'm telling you is there's other ways to do it. They've already figured out a few other ways to do it, but typically how it works in the medical world, especially from a financial perspective, if there is no major, dollar amount that can be made, if there's no reason to pivot, if there has to be a total retraining too of people to administer something in a new way, then why do it, right? So like, what problem are you solving? And the problem that I'm solving is I'm not the only one. There are a lot of people who see things like vaccines as scary, right? And then they convince themselves that they don't want to take them because they're scared of the whole process. Whereas in pills aren't scary, right? Inhaling something isn't scary. So I just feel like it could also be important down the road. God forbid there's something that has the death rate of Ebola, but has the spread profile of coronavirus. We can be in trouble, right? So you have to make sure that things are as easy to administer as possible. And if you're gonna have medications out there, don't jab me with a knife inside of my arm. And then also what I would say is to the nurses and the doctors out there, this isn't their specialty, but doing it in the delt is such a bad place to do it. Okay. So you have three muscles, three shoulder muscles here. You have a lot of shoulder muscles inside, but on the outside, right? You have the muscles are like an onion, right? So like there's muscles on the inside, but you have your anterior delt, your medial delt, and your rear delt. They stick it somewhere between your medial and your rear delt, which especially in women, sometimes is like almost non-existent. Okay. So, and it's going like
I don't
straight.
think you could find it on my arm, and I'm pretty toned.
So you're jabbing it into this like small muscle, like what you want to do is try to get it more into fat. So what you want to do is actually do it in the upper outside quadrant of your glute. So if they can turn you over and give you needles in the upper outside quadrant of your glute, right? If you were to draw your butt cheek, if you were to make a cross through your butt cheek and have 4 quadrants, right? It would be in the upper one closer to the outside of your body, right?
Yeah.
That's where you have less pain nerves, right? You have more fat there. Like that's where you want to do intramuscular injections, not in your shoulder. So I think that's another thing doctors and nurses can start to do.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I think I have friends that have gone through fertility treatments, and I think that's where they had to make the injections their upper glute. So we're doing it. Why not pivot to do that for vaccines? If not, I like the idea of the intranasal.
Well, I think that is it for our topics today, Beck. Thanks for joining the TrulyFit Podcast. And just to remind listeners, if you're listening to this right now, this will also be on YouTube. So go to TrulyFitApp on YouTube, subscribe, and you can watch the podcast as well.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.